Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us for this webinar. We're really excited to do it. A lot of you have been asking for this, and we're doing it now. We're doing it just a basics to teach you how to do certain things within the system, how to do a basic setup, and it'll really allow you to ask a lot of questions that you have around the system, around the devices. So we're happy to announce that we are going to be doing this regularly, probably about twice a year. And it will be the same subject each time, maybe a little bit different depending on where the questions go. But again, just to kind of give you a sense of what's there in the system, how to set things up, and that kind of stuff. So again, thank you very much for joining us today. Just a couple of housekeeping things. If you can't hear me or you're having trouble with the audio in general, please check your settings. If you do have a question, please enter that question into the questions box there, and we will be monitoring it. There will be a couple of times where I stop the presentation to allow for questions, and I'll go over them. And of course, at the end of the presentation, I will also go over questions. I also want to note to everyone that if you had asked a question upon registering for the webinar, we went ahead and answered all of them, and we actually entered them into the chat. So you can go into the chat box there and start reviewing them. We can also give you a copy of those questions after the webinar. As always, the webinar is being recorded. We'll make it available to you along with the presentation and any other materials that we go over. So don't worry if you miss something, you'll have it sent out to you not long after. All right, so today we're going to go over the InTemp product line in general. There have been a lot of questions about which logger should I buy and what kind of software do I need to use. We'll go over a little bit about the recalibration program, resources for you to view in terms of help getting things started, learning about your loggers, learning about the different systems, some customer support resources, troubleshooting tips, a basic overview of all the system components, and then I'm actually going to go into InTempConnect itself and show you how to go through a basic setup. There are going to be some slides that I kind of fly through just because of time. Again, don't worry if there's something on there that I didn't cover. It's all written out in the presentation. You'll be able to review it after, and you'll be notified of all the different resources you can go to in the future. The InTemp product line. So obviously we got a large catalog of loggers that you can go through, each with different purposes. For storage, we have the CX400 family, which includes the CX402s, the CX403, 405, and 450. For logistics, we have the 500s, 600s, and 700s. A lot of people ask, can you use the 400s for logistics or vice versa, the 700s for storage? You absolutely can. Obviously, there's different advantages and disadvantages to each logger, but you could definitely use whatever you think is most appropriate. And hopefully I'm going to make that very obvious to you going through this presentation in terms of what works for you. In order to create automation, we have the CX5000 gateway, which I'll go into more details throughout the presentation. We have two different mobile apps. We have the InTemp app and we have InTemp Verify. They are very different apps for very different purposes. Again, I'll get into those details later on, so you know exactly which app you should be using and which app should be used in different applications. And then, of course, there is the InTempConnect cloud platform where all your data gets centralized, where you can view and download reports and do all the setup you need for your gateways and your loggers and creating that automation. So I really want to focus on the CX400 family because that's where we're getting the most questions. And a lot of times customers are asking, which 400 is right for me? What you're seeing now is eventually, actually in the very new future, going to be put up on our website so you can see immediately which logger you should purchase. Every single product page on the website now also goes over this, so you'll get a good understanding of what that logger is for and who should be buying it. But a really quick overview here. The CX402 VFC is for vaccines for children customers or clinics, hospitals, anybody who is storing and monitoring vaccines in general and are required to follow CDC guidelines specifically. And that means you need a probe and glycol that's detachable, 3-year NIST certificate, which is what the CDC and VFC programs dictate, GDP, GMP compliant, and frozen to refrigerated monitoring. Note, this has a 1-point NIST calibration for the probe only. That is a key differentiator, as well as the 3-year NIST certificate. The CX402 are really for GDP and GMP customers. So that's people or customers following FDA regulations, EU, WHO, USP, all of those different guidelines where they dictate that you really need to have a logger in general. It does not require probe and glycol, but a logger in general that has a 1-year NIST certificate. So that is a key differentiator there. So if you're following GDP, GMP guidelines specifically, they are saying to go with a 1-year NIST certificate. And we NIST both the probe and the ambient sensor for that one. So that is the major difference there. The CX402 does not have the glycol bottle. It does come with an option for a blunt tip probe versus the sharp probe, which is really appropriate for any customers who are monitoring blood or plasma and they have plastic bags, don't want to be punctured. The 403 does not have a probe at all. It is just an internal sensor only, more meant for storage in general, like warehousing spaces, cold rooms, that kind of stuff. The 405 is a new logger that we built very recently that allows for ultra low temperature monitoring. So it has the screen with a ultra low probe that allows you to monitor vaccines such as Pfizer and anything else that might require dry ice conditions. So we did build this in response to the pandemic and to the vaccines that are being developed to fight COVID. And it does allow you to do dry ice monitoring with the screen. And then lastly, the 450 is our temperature and humidity combo logger. So it does both. Again, more for GDP, GMP customers who need to monitor warehousing spaces or storage spaces in general, and also have products that are sensitive to different levels of humidity. Next, I'm going to go over the recalibration program. A lot of questions come up around this. The recalibration program is for the United States only. We are in the process of building a global recalibration program. It's not going to be the same as the US one, though. We're working with partners for the global one, so they're going to dictate their own policies and processes. So it might vary from partner to partner and region to region, but we are in the works of building a global one. For the US program, you will receive a reminder email from us 30 days prior to when your loggers are due for recalibration. Once you get that notice, you can go online and go to the recalibration page and request recalibrations for up to 5 loggers. Unfortunately, the website doesn't let you go beyond that as of now. We're trying to fix that so you can put in as many as you want. But if you have more than 5 loggers, you can definitely contact our customer service group, and there's their email and phone number there, and you can place a request that way. The way it works is replacement loggers are sent to you before you have to send back your existing loggers. So you don't have to worry about a gap in monitoring. You hang on to the loggers that you're using to record with at the moment. We'll send you a replacement loggers first, and in that replacement, with those replacement loggers, You'll have a prepaid label and packaging to return those loggers, and then you can use the new ones. Just a quick note on the different loggers here. The CX402 VFC logger can only be recalibrated once. All 400 loggers are good for up to 6 years. And since the VFC logger has a 3-year NIST certificate, it can only be recalibrated once before you have to buy a new logger. All other CX400 loggers can be recalibrated up to 5 times. So again, 6 years use, so you can do it 5 times because it's a 1-year calibration certificate. I do want to stop here and see if we have any questions so far.
A couple questions, Colin. The first one says, can probes with expired calibration still be used, or are they blocked by the system?
No, they still can be used. However, every single regulation, whether you're storage or logistics, so CDC, FDA, WHO, every single one of them will say you cannot use a unnested logger or a logger that has gone beyond its NIST date. So by regulation, you do have to get those re-NISTed or purchase a new one. So they will work, but the issue is with the regulations.
Okay, the next question says how to assign different emails and telephone numbers for notification of different loggers on the same gateway. We have several gateways and many loggers per gateway.
Yeah, that's something that I'll definitely get into later on the webinar, but we have something called trip information. Actually has nothing to do with trips. It's just an industry standard term that we're kind of stuck with, unfortunately. But they're really data tags, and using those data tags will allow you to send the correct data to the correct person so that one person isn't getting all the notifications. We'll definitely go over that during the webinar.
Okay, we have one more question. It says,
Mhm.
does the CX400 series come with a calibration certificate initially?
Yes, it does. All loggers, even the 5, 6, 700s, will come with a NIST certificate upon order. So when you receive them for the first time, and anytime you recalibrate them, you will get the NIST certificate. On top of that, you can always go to InTempConnect to download your NIST certificate. So you have a way to do that in InTempConnect. It will date back historically. So if you have 5 different recalibrations for a 400 logger, you do have a way to pull each one of those NIST certificates for each recalibration. I will definitely be going over that during the webinar as well.
Great. One more just popped up. It says, what happens after the 6 years? In our case, we don't have to follow any regulations, but is it a question of internal data or battery?
Yeah, so with the 6-year mark, that has to do with the hardware itself. There is something called drift where the accuracy does start to drift away from where it needs to be over time. It doesn't necessarily happen at the 6-year mark. However, there is degradation to the actual hardware. So that's why we say at 6 years, you do have to buy a new one.
Okay, that was the last question.
Great. Thank you very much, Mason.
You're welcome.
All right. So I'm going to go over some resources. These are resources that I think are very useful for all customers. Definitely something you should look at if you haven't done so already. These are all online. I've given you links here in the presentation to go to the specific ones, but there's a lot on our website. There's videos, there's documents, there's our webinars. So there's a lot of different resources you can access to really help out with anything you might be having issues with. But some very useful links is the InTempConnect user guide. This is an interactive guide that goes over every single piece of functionality within InTempConnect. So from creating a new user to downloading a report or creating a custom report, creating notifications, anything you can think of in InTempConnect is detailed out in this guide, step-by-step directions with pictures. It's really good to go over, so I highly recommend using that. You have the InTemp user guide, which is a much more in-depth guide for the whole system. So it goes over not only InTempConnect, but the apps, the loggers, the gateway. This is a completely written guide, so there's no there isn't a lot of pictures. There are some, but there isn't pictures like the InTempConnect user guide, and it's much more detailed. For technical assistance, know that we do have our tech support group. And a lot of people ask, is there somebody, I can contact directly, or what's their number? The best way to contact tech support, which is a whole group, so there isn't one individual, is to click on that link there and then fill out a form. They do have a number and email as well, but honestly, the form is the best method to use. We have the onset quality webpage. This is for anybody who needs to understand or to review our quality documentation if they're being audited, or if they need to understand the standards around ISO 9001. So you can go there to get some good information, again, if you are being audited. And then we also have a guide for 21 CFR Part 11. This is a requirement for our system in order to be able to, for all of you to sell it or use our system. So again, whether you're storage or logistics, we have to have this system 21 CFR Part 11 compliant. This guide explains how we are compliant. So again, if you're being audited, you can pull this up easily from the website and show the auditor how this is a 21 CFR Part 11 compliant system. I just want to take a second to go over our customer support groups. There does seem to be a lot of confusion about who does what and what they are capable of doing, so I'm going to go over it briefly here. For tech support, they are responsible for troubleshooting technical issues with the devices, the mobile apps, or InTempConnect. They can provide some setup assistance, but please note, this group is not responsible for providing full user trainings. If you need more detail or more in-depth guide, please do visit our resources on our website. Look at our videos, look at the InTempConnect user guide and the other user guides. We have a lot there that can really guide you through whatever you need. Customer service is exclusively for placing new orders and for questions on existing orders. They don't do anything else. They're not tech support, they're not sales, so they will place new orders for you, and they will provide any answers you need on existing orders. So they are not system experts. They won't really be able to answer questions on how the system works or the different features, that kind of stuff. If you do need to ask those types of questions, then you should contact sales. They also can place new orders for you. Existing orders, questions on existing orders still need to go through customer services. But sales can do new orders for you. They can provide demos and answer your questions on the system itself. And of course, provide you assistance with finding the right product. There are several different troubleshooting tips that I've included in this presentation. This is part I'm going to kind of go through quickly because there's a lot here. Again, you'll get the presentation so you can go through this, but the more common ones is, why is the app asking me for a passkey? In short, that means you either have not signed in as an InTempConnect user, or you signed into the wrong InTempConnect account. You do have to be in the same InTempConnect account that the logger was configured under in order to access it normally. If you're in anything else, you will get a message asking for that passkey. I am unable to see the logger I'm trying to connect to. Try restarting the app or your phone, toggle the Bluetooth. Make sure you're using the correct app. I'll explain the different apps soon. But there is a major difference between the InTemp and InTemp Verify apps. And note that some Android devices and OS versions are just not supported at this time. It is impossible for us to do every single combination of Android and OS version for Androids. So if you are having issues, please contact tech support. Let us know what device you're using, what OS version, operating system version you're on. and we'll let you know if you need to possibly consider a different device or if there's something we can do to fix it. I'm unable to perform certain actions in InTempConnect or the apps. This is usually a permissions issue. Make sure that your administrator gives you the correct permissions to do what you need to do. Download a logger with the app, but do not see it in ITC. Again, make sure you're signing to the right account. Also, please note our apps do not run in the background. Unfortunately, Apple does not allow that with app development, so we have no choice in this. But if you switch to a different app, so either it's email or just a different app in general, or you shut off your phone before the data is sent to InTempConnect, that data will not be sent up until you reopen the InTemp app. So make sure you stay in the app long enough so that the data can get up there. Loggers unexpectedly stopped recording. You know, it could be your settings. It could be that the memory ran out. It could be that the batteries died. There's a few things that could be. And then there are a lot of gateway troubleshooting tips that we can provide. That is in the InTempConnect user guide that I already went over. So now I want to go into the background before I actually jump into the true demo. So I'm just going to give you the high level view of our system by going over all the different components. Obviously, you have the data loggers, which we just reviewed, 400s for storage, everything else for logistics. The gateway is your automation tool, meaning it will configure your loggers, it will start your loggers, it will download your loggers and either stop, restart, or continue or allow them to continue recording data. It is what enables notifications so you can be alerted if a temperature excursion occurred, or if your gateway went down, or if a download occurred in general. If you do not have a gateway, you will not be able to receive these notifications. The notifications do not work with the app because obviously you have to be on site with the app in order to interact with the loggers. And that's the key thing here. These are Bluetooth devices. So if you're not using a gateway and you're using the app, you do have to be in range of those loggers. So the range is up to 100 feet line of sight meaning no heavy walls, no heavy metals, that kind of stuff, in order to be able to connect to those loggers with the app. Same thing with the gateway. The gateway needs to be in range of those loggers in order to create all the automation benefits that you're looking for and in order to send those notifications out. Another question that gets asked pretty often is this a real-time monitoring system? It is not. I want to make that very clear because it comes up a lot. There's a lot of confusion around it. This does not provide real-time data for storage or logistics. We are working on solutions for that. We're hoping in the next couple of years we will have some real-time solutions for you. But as of right now, you will have to go into InTempConnect, wait for a download to occur, or we just released a new feature that allows you to perform a download anytime you want. But you do have to go into InTempConnect and go through the process to download whatever logger you want. But it does allow you to do downloads at any time, so you don't have to wait for the next scheduled download. So that is a brand new feature. We're really excited about that one. It gets you as close to real time as we can get you right now without it being actually real time. For the mobile apps, like I said, we have two different mobile apps. We have InTemp and InTemp Verify. InTemp is what gives you full control over your loggers. And by that, I mean it allows you to program and start your loggers and download your loggers, and then you can either stop, restart, or let them continue monitoring. It also allows you to set up and control your gateways. So this can be used by all customers. And again, it's to give you full control of it. A lot of times people ask, if I'm using the app, does that mean I should not use the gateway or vice versa? Absolutely not. You can definitely use them together. We encourage it. If you use the app, you can actually see temperatures in real time, but again, you have to be in range of the loggers. So you can't be, at home or somewhere else and use the app and expect to see real-time temperature in there. You do have to be on site. But it is a great alternative if your gateway does go down, or if you want to do a download on the spot while you're on site. InTemp Verify is a very different app. This is really meant for logistics customers only, so doing transportation. What this does is it allows our loggers to be used almost as if they were USB loggers without any of the disadvantages of USB logger. And what I mean by that is it allows for greater data accessibility. So with a USB logger, obviously anybody in the world can pick one up, plug it in the computer, and grab the data. That's what this app allows you to do, but you don't have to plug in your logger. And it's a very sophisticated app. So basically, you say which loggers you want to be used with this app. If you do not configure the logger with InTemp Verify enabled, you will not see that logger appear in the app at all. So that leads me to a good point here. If you're not seeing loggers in the app, it could be that you downloaded the wrong app. You might have wanted to download InTemp versus InTemp Verify. Of course, there could be some other issues with InTemp where you might have to restart the app, restart your phone, toggle your Bluetooth, that kind of stuff. But make sure you're downloading the right app. Going back to InTemp Verify, the user who is doing the download does not have to be part of an InTempConnect account. They don't have to be part of anything. So again, data accessibility. All they have to do is press download, and then the data is automatically sent to the InTempConnect account where the logger was configured. So whoever actually owns that logger. The user doesn't have to know an email. They don't have to know anything. That happens automatically. So the data goes to the right place automatically. And in the app, the user can see right then and there if what the temperature is and if there's any excursions, check out the battery levels, that kind of stuff. So this is a very powerful new app for our transportation customers. It opens up a lot of possibilities. And then of course there's InTempConnect. That's your cloud platform. That's where all your data goes. It allows you to centralize your data. It allows you to pull reports. It allows you to create custom reports, set up your notifications so that you can be informed immediately of alarm excursions, or if the gateway went down. There's a lot in here that I will go over in just a bit. So now we're going to get into the basic InTempConnect setup. And here is the order of things. So I'm going to go into detail on each one of these. I'm going to go into InTempConnect itself and show it to you live. But just so you have something real quick and easy to reference, this is the order I recommend going in whenever you create a brand new InTempConnect account. So the first thing you do is set up your own profile, which means you're setting up your preferences such as Celsius or Fahrenheit, how you want your reports, your time zone, that kind of stuff. Go into security settings where you're setting password restrictions. Then roles and privileges where you're defining what different people have in terms of privileges, so what they can and cannot do in both InTempConnect and the InTemp mobile app. Create new users after you do all of that, and you'll see why I say new users after you do those things. Create gateway profiles to dictate the behavior of the gateway. Create logger profiles to dictate the behavior of the loggers. Create trip information. Again, it has nothing to do with trips, has nothing to do with shipments. These are data tags. They are very powerful tools, and it will open up a lot of different possibilities for you, and they're very important. A lot of times these get overlooked. And then after you create trip information, then you can create notifications so you can be alerted of alarms or temperature alarms, missing gateways, and just downloads in general. Before I get into the actual demonstration, are there any questions, Mason?
Hey, Colin. Yeah, some questions did come in. One says, can any loggers be self-calibrated? They have no regulations to follow, just for their own personal self-checking.
So could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. I know it's a little confusing, but it says, can any loggers be self-calibrated? No
I see. Okay.
regulations to follow, just for their own self-checks.
No, unfortunately, they cannot be self-calibrated. We do have to use proprietary software in order to perform the NIST on these loggers. We do not offer that software to any customers, so they do have to be sent in to us to get renisted, or whenever or as soon as we create the global recalibration program, you can go to our partners who are participating in it.
Okay, next question was asking if there was so somebody mentioned they're experiencing some instability with notifications, and we're asking, is there any kind of global issue going on, or is this isolated?
No, I'm not aware of any issues at the moment. Usually I get notified almost immediately if there are issues. So if you are seeing delays or anything like that, please do contact our tech support department. Again, go on our website, fill out that form, and we'd be very happy to look into it for you.
Next question says, we are interested in longer tip probes for inserting in product boxes. Is that possible?
At the moment, we do not offer different probe lengths. If you actually, Mason, you might want to follow up with this person directly and put in a new product request.
Okay.
And once that new product request goes in, we could definitely assess it. Usually we do have to have a good economic justification to add a new part, but we can figure that out after we receive the new product request.
Okay. Another question was asking, why would a CX400 logger go from Fahrenheit to Celsius overnight?
That would mean somebody in the InTempConnect changed the settings. So again, if somebody's in InTempConnect and you need to restrict permissions, you really should restrict permissions, but that means somebody is going into your account and changing the settings.
Okay. Another question, they asked if there were any known issues if they use the app on an Android.
No, but again, not all Android devices will work with our app. We test as many devices as possible. We have heard some issues with some of the European models, and we try to assess that on a case-by-case basis. So it could be your device. We do only support the most recent OS version, so operating system version. So if you go on our website, we do say what those versions are, but it's usually the last 3 major versions we support. So make sure your phone is up to date. And then if you're still having issues, please, again, contact tech support.
Okay, another question asked, can you remove the sign-in requirement every time we use the app, just like most other apps don't require the sign-in every time?
Unfortunately, we cannot for the InTemp app. That is something that a lot of our customers do require. And actually, in order for it to be 21 CFR Part 11 compliant, we do have to have that login screen per regulation. So we really can't do anything about that. That being said, with the InTemp Verify app, so not the InTemp app, the InTemp app, you do have to sign in every time. The InTemp Verify app, you sign in once and you stay signed in until you logged out again. So that one does do that because of the other security restrictions that we put in there.
Got it. Okay. All right, the next one was asking what the blue button is on top of the CX5000 is. The little inner button, which they can press with a paper clip next to the Ethernet port.
I think that button is actually disabled. So I don't think it actually does anything. To reset your gateway, you press the blue button at the top. There is a description of the buttons and the different components of the gateway in our InTemp user guide, not the InTempConnect, but the InTemp user guide. So that goes into detail around the gateway. And then there's also the gateway user guide itself, which will go into good detail about the different components of it.
All right. The next one says, what is your recommendation to ensure alerts, alarms are received when offsite? For example, if it's in the middle of the night when one might be sleeping.
Yeah, so our notifications I'll definitely go over, but we do have the ability to create both email and or text messages. So if I mean, it's one of those things where you're gonna have to make sure your phone's on, and then maybe have a different schedule with your different colleagues to say, all right, I'll keep my phone on this night and that night. That's something you kind of have to figure out internally. If you do have any suggestions for us in terms of, new features or system behavior, we do encourage you to reach out to us and give those suggestions. We're hoping to create a virtual suggestion box in InTempConnect itself very soon. But in the meantime, do reach out to us and let us know what you might be thinking there.
Gotcha.
Let's do a couple more questions until we hit 2:40, Mason. And then I want to
Okay,
make sure I have enough time to go through everything here.
you got it. Want to ask, can other people with the app access our loggers or have them added to their account?
As long as they are part of the same InTempConnect account, they will be able to access your loggers, and then you can control what they can and cannot do through the privileges. But they do have to be a user in your InTempConnect account in order to do it. If they are not, they cannot access a logger. They're going to get that message saying that a passkey is required.
Got you. Okay. And it looks like we can get another one in. Can you
Yep.
download loggers through both the InTempConnect app and the web interface?
Yes, you can. I will go over that feature. So the InTemp mobile app will definitely allow you to download loggers, and I'll show you how you can download loggers remotely through InTempConnect. In order for this feature to work, though, you do have to have a gateway. So if you don't have a gateway, you will not be able to download loggers remotely. All right, let's save the rest of the questions for the end to make sure we get through the rest of this. Thanks, Mason. All right, so I am going to go through a live demonstration now. Make sure that we can see my screen. Perfect. So this, again, is your basic InTempConnect setup. So in the last slide I showed you, I gave you the high-level order of operations. So I'm going to go into it a bit more detail now. So when you do create your InTempConnect account, the first thing I do is, as I said, set your profile settings, and this is for you. This is for your view alone. Defaulted to Celsius or Fahrenheit, say your time zone, what kind of report settings you want, and you can always change your password as well. Or if you have a name change, you can change your name here. The next step is to go into your security settings. You can also do roles if you want to do that next. Either way, one is fine. Security settings is all around passwords. So you want to set this up before you create new users so that if you do have password requirements, those are in place before that user signs in for the first time. So you can dictate how often they need to change their password. So every week, every month, every quarter. It's completely customizable. You can say how often you want them to change their password. If you don't need them to ever change the password, leave it blank and they never have to change it. Allowable previous password use basically says, you put a number in there as whatever number you want. So an example is if you put in 5, it says that user cannot reuse the last 5 passwords when creating a new one. So I can't use the last 5 passwords that I used in the past when creating a brand new one. And as soon as that cycles out, then they can start reusing passwords again. And then account locking. That dictates how many times they can enter a password incorrectly before they get locked out and have to click on the forgot password link. Again, you can make that any number you want, completely customizable. After you do security, go to roles. This is where you dictate who can do what or can't do something in the system and the InTemp mobile app. There are no privileges for the InTemp Verify app because that is already completely locked down. There's no reason to have privileges around that. So there's very little you can do in the InTemp Verify app. The user can actually only just do a download and continue. They can't stop. They can't restart the loggers. They can't pull or share data or reports. All they can do is download and have the loggers continue logging. So what you do is you think about the different roles you might have in your organization. So within a hospital, you might have a site manager versus a nurse, and they might have different roles within the system. Or logistics, you might have your quality engineer versus your shipping staff or your receiving staff. Again, they might have different privileges. Just click add role and then describe what the role is. So again, it might be QA manager or site manager or nurse. And then choose which privileges you want to give them. If you hold down the control key and click on each one, it will allow you to click multiple at once. And then you could just click this to move them over. There is a description of every single privilege in the InTemp user guide. So if you don't know what something means, you can refer to that guide to understand exactly what that privilege is and decide if you want that user to have it or not. The cloud symbol is for InTempConnect. The device symbol is for the InTemp mobile app. So you'll create different roles, and each role has its own set of permissions. So here I created a couple of example ones. And then after you do that, you can create the users. So I can simply click add user, put in their email address, first name, last name, and then assign that role. And when I assign that role to them, all the privileges under that role automatically flow over to that person. Again, dictates who can do what in the system. So that's why I suggest doing all these things before you ever create a new user. Do your security settings, do your roles and privileges, then create the new users. Again, Mason, if there's anything that's very relevant to what I'm showing at the time, go ahead and interrupt me with the question. Otherwise, I'll just keep moving on.
Sounds good.
All right. So after you do all of this, the next steps I recommend are creating gateway profiles and logger profiles. It doesn't matter which one you do first, but you should do those two things next. So gateway profiles. Make sure you know which loggers you're using. So that a lot of times people ask, well, what about the 402 versus the 403? We group these into families. So all 400 loggers, except for the 450, fall under this family, the CX400s. The 502 and 503s fall under the 500s, 602, 603 under 600s, and so forth. You have different options here. And this is to set up your automation again. So what you do is you say what you want it to, the gateway to do whenever it does a download. So download and restart. If you want it to restart your logger every time, meaning it clears the data completely and starts new, this is what we recommend for our storage customers so that they don't have to use the app to restart the loggers. And so they don't have to go on site and do that. The gateway will download the logger automatically and it will restart the logger and allow it to start recording again with a new set of data, all remotely.
Couple quick
Download
questions
and
actually,
continue.
Colin popped
Yes.
up.
Yes.
Okay, one individual asked, can we have two administrators?
You can definitely do that. So if you go to roles or users here, I can add the administrator privilege to as many people as I want. So you can have as many administrators as you like. That's a great question.
Okay. The other one said, are we able to update or change the roles for the users?
Yes, you can. You can do that very easily by, again, going to users, click on existing user, and then I can update that user's roles really easily.
Great. Okay.
And then when
And
I
then
click save, it happens automatically.
when you get to this point, one person was just asking how to edit an existing gateway profile, and that was it.
Sure. So if you need to edit existing gateway profile, what you really have to do is there's really no good way to edit it, unfortunately. You do just kind of create a copy here, give it a new name, and then edit it that way. So you're really creating a new profile. I'm going to look into options around that because that is a little annoying to have so many. However, if you do have a profile that you're no longer using, just click the disable button here. You can always re-enable them whenever you want. There's no way to delete these. So you can enable or disable them, and then they won't even show up as options when you're going to configure the logger or gateway. If you do create a new profile, it's easy to change a profile remotely so you don't have to be on site with the app. Just go here, click edit, and then select the new profile, click save, and that will update the gateway remotely with the new profile settings. All right, thanks, Mason. So the other two options here are download continue and download and stop. That's mostly used by logistics customers. So basically when the logger gets to a destination, they want that gateway to stop it completely and have it downloaded. Check this box if you want to make sure you get notified of any temperature excursions. So if you don't have this box checked, you're not going to get that notification when a temperature excursion occurs. So that box is very important. One thing to note here is when a gateway downloads a logger that has been alarmed, it ignores this command above. It ignores the download and restart and stop whatever. It defaults to download and continue only. That's not made clear here, so I just want to make sure everybody was clear on that. It does default to download and continue. This is mostly used for transportation customers. Again, if you're a storage customer, I typically recommend unchecking it. If you are a transportation logistics customer, I usually recommend having it there, but basically it says if the gateway has never seen that logger before, download it and do follow this command here. And then this is your regularly scheduled download. So you can say, do you want every day, week, or month? And it will follow the command here. And that way it allows you to get regular reports and do regular downloads automatically. So especially for clinics, hospitals, anybody monitoring vaccines, usually you have to submit a report to the CDC. And usually you have to do that every week. So I usually say set it to download and restart, do it every week. That way the download occurs every week and you get your report automatically through the notifications. So that's the gateway. And then again, do your logger profiles, which dictates the behavior of the loggers. You'll see when you first create an account, there are several predefined logger profiles. Please make sure to review the settings of each one of these profiles. If they do not work for you, or if they don't make sense in terms of your application, please disable them so they don't even show up as an option when you're configuring the logger. If one of them does work for you, great, saves you a little bit of time. But if none of these do work for you, then create your own. You can create a custom profile that allows you to dictate how often data is recorded. So you can go down to 1 second, although I really don't recommend that because you run out of memory very quickly. You can go up to 18 hours. You can define how the logger starts. So you can have it start immediately or after elapsed time, which is mostly used by logistics and transportation customers. So they'll say, don't start until maybe an hour later. So it gives them time to condition the loggers in maybe a cold room or something. So there isn't false alarms at the beginning of the shipment.
Hey, Colin.
Yes.
One question asked if you can edit the configuration name.
For the profile,
I believe so.
for the logger profile, I think that's something that's weirdly blocked. It's something I would like to change. I'd have to double check that one, but I think you do have to actually create a new profile if you want to change the name. I might be wrong on the logger profile. So I'll have to double check that one, unfortunately.
Okay, and then one more just popped in. They wanted to know if there was a pre-made profile for the COVID vaccine.
Not specifically for the COVID vaccine. We do have a dry ice one, but not for the 400 family. So you would have to create your own for the 400 families, especially since the 405 falls under the 400 family, and that is dry ice. So you will have to create a custom one for the COVID vaccines. And you can easily do that here by altering your high and low temps. All right, so another common question is, what's the difference between the logger alarms and the cloud alarms? The logger alarms are what set off the alarm notifications immediately. So if they exceed your threshold here, the logger will start advertising to your gateway immediately. The gateway will download the logger immediately, and then the system will send you that notification to alert you that has exceeded these thresholds. So that's what the logger alarms do. The cloud alarms are really for additional reporting. So you can set up as many cloud alarms as you want, but usually what I recommend is make these as warning alarms. So they're just warning you that temperatures are about to exceed the absolute limits of that particular product, so that when you get the notification, you can look in the report with the notification and see, okay, did it exceed the cloud alarm, which is its true threshold? So again, this is what works with your notifications. This is just for additional reporting and also allows you to set MKT, mean kinetic temperature, for transportation customers. So the next thing you do after that is trip information. Again, this is such a powerful and important tool. There's a lot of questions around this, but it really enables you to do a lot. Trip information, again, has nothing to do with trips, nothing to do with shipments. It's just an industry standard term that our competitors use, so we're kind of stuck with it. They're data tags, and you can make a data tag for anything you can think of. So you can see I've already created several different examples. These are all just off the top of my head, but they serve really a few different purposes. One is it allows you to identify the logger. So when you're programming the logger, you're going to program with these data tags so that when you get a download and a report, you can see that that logger belonged to this clinic in this hospital room and was in this refrigerator. You know exactly where that logger was. Or for logistics, you can say like, all right, it went with this courier, DHL, UPS, FedEx, and this type of package with 2-day shipping. So again, you can add a lot more additional data to these loggers to identify them. And then with that information, you can also actually sort your data based on the data tags so that I can do additional analysis. So I can, as a transportation customer, see, okay, FedEx is doing these shipments, UPS is doing these shipments. One of them is experiencing a lot of alarms, where the other one has not had alarm at all. So I can actually make business decisions to say, okay, I'm not going to use this courier anymore, or I need to buy or purchase better packaging because I'm experiencing too many excursions. Or maybe the packaging I have is too good and I can reduce my cost by going to a lower cost package, or decide what kind of shipping methods you need to use. Or you can assess hospital or department performance. So you can make a lot of business related decisions with this. And the last thing it really does is it allows you to dictate what data goes to what person. So that's your notifications, and that's something that gets asked a lot. And I'll go over that when I go over notifications real quickly. Add a trip field, again, just put in a name, and you want to think high level here. So it might be courier again. And there's a few different value types. I typically tell people to ignore date. I actually don't know anybody who uses date. So text and list are the popular ones. Text is if you don't know the value at that time. So if you create a shipment and you don't know that FedEx or UPS or DHL shipping it, then you're going to want to leave it as a text so that you can type it in manually. Or if you do know, you can create a list. I can say DHL, FedEx, UPS, and this becomes a drop-down box. So there's predefined values for the user to select when programming the logger. And then again, that data gets applied to that logger. So I know, okay, FedEx is the one who delivered the product with this logger on it. So again, this is if you know the values ahead of time. Text is if you don't know the value. So perfect example of that is tracking number. You usually don't know tracking number right up until the shipment. So you might want to leave that as a text field. Notifications. This is so important. This is where you are able to set things up so that you can be alerted if temperature excursions occur, if your gateways went down, or if just a normal download occur in general. You can do email and text messaging. You can do both. Sensor alarms is for any time there's a temperature excursion. Missing gateway is if your gateway goes down for any reason. So power failure, internet failure, got unplugged, whatever it might be. A new feature we just released is you can now say when that notification goes out. So if the gateway goes down for 20 minutes, then the notification will go out, or 30 minutes. You can say when you want to be notified. So a question that was asked earlier is, if I put in my email now and I have applied to all, that means I'm going to get an alert for every single excursion that occurs. If I use that trip information I just created, I can now say, okay, I want this person to only receive the notifications for loggers that have been assigned to Clinic 1 or Hospital ABC, or were used by this courier, or whatever it might be. That is how you define what data goes to what person. We can definitely help you out with that. I know it's a little confusing, so we can definitely address those things with you, but that is how you do that. And then data, again, is just for regular downloads. One thing to point out is email is how you get a notification with the actual report in it. Text messages will not have the report in it for obvious reasons, but the email will have the report directly in it. Make sure you say that you want to attach those reports to the notification. A lot of questions I get is on stop only. What that means is you will not get this notification unless the logger was actually stopped. This is for transportation customers only, really. If you're a storage customer, uncheck this to make sure you're getting the reports anytime a download happens for any reason. The last thing I want to show you quickly, this is not part of the setup, so this actually concludes the setup portion of it. The new feature we release is the download logger feature. Again, this allows you to perform downloads out of schedule, so you don't have to wait for an alarm, or you don't have to wait for a regularly scheduled download that happens every day, week, or month, depending on what you set the gateway to. So if you need to do an out of schedule download, come here, select your gateway, and that'll automatically populate with all the loggers in range of that gateway. So the loggers do have to be in range. Select what loggers, you can do multiple if you want. Select which ones you want to download. Select what type of download you want to do. And then click download, and you'll see here that the request goes in. Please note that you cannot perform another download until this is done downloading. So you can do other downloads for other loggers. You just can't do another download for the same logger until it's done downloading. This can take up to 10 minutes to occur. Our gateway communicates with InTempConnect every 10 minutes. So if you catch the gateway after it already talked to InTempConnect, you might have to wait up to 10 minutes for the download to actually occur. But once it does happen, you can continue to download it as many times as you want. For logistics and transportation customers, you cannot download a logger that is part of a shipment. So if you're using the shipment feature here, you cannot download a logger that is assigned to a particular shipment. This is only that is only relevant to logistics and transportation customers. So again, this is not a real-time system, but we do give you a feature that allows you to perform a download remotely anywhere in the world at any time you want. So with that, I'm a little bit over time now, but I am happy to answer any remaining questions. If you need to sign off, don't worry. We will send you the recording, we will send you the presentation, and we now gave you all the different resources you can refer to answer a lot of your questions. So with that, I just do want to say thank you to anybody who's signing off now. We really appreciate you joining us. Again, we'll do this more regularly so that we can train any new staff or anything on the basics. We'll go over new features if they come up, and please look out for any other webinars we're doing. We'll definitely do other webinars that go over very specific features or applications, and we'll always keep you notified of that. So again, thank you very much, and let's open it up to questions, Mason.
Okay, one's asking if you can discuss the differences or different advantages of download and continue, download and restart.
And download
Yeah,
and stop.
a couple questions pertaining to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I use it for different applications. Download and restart is typically for storage customers. You can decide, you really have to think about your internal process in terms of what makes sense. But I usually recommend download and restart for storage customers so that you're getting an additional level of automation. Meaning, if you have to submit a report to the CDC every week, the gateway will download the logger every week and then restart it so that the data starts fresh and you're getting 1 week's worth of data every week. So you're literally clearing all that data and having the logger start up automatically, meaning nobody has to be on site to download it, nobody has to be on site to reprogram and restart the logger. So again, that's adding another level of automation. Continue and stop are typically for transportation customers. So stop would be, the logger reaches its destination on a shipment. You want that gateway to just stop it as soon as it arrives at its destination and then get the report. You can do continue in case you wanted to continue recording for a while after it arrives at its destination, but you will need to manually stop it with the app. So there is a manual component to that. If you're using download and continue as a storage customer, keep in mind, you will have to be on site and use the mobile app to download, stop, and restart the logger at some point in time because the gateway will not restart and clear that data, and your logger will fill up with memory eventually and will stop automatically without you really knowing. So if you're going to use download continue as a storage customer, you really got to put a good process in place to make sure they're being downloaded and stopped occasionally and then restarting them manually. So those are the major differences.
Okay, another question. Is there a way to test the system to ensure staff are receiving alarm notifications without a temperature excursion having to occur?
You can do just a regular download. So you can keep the loggers in range. And if you set up, 1 second. If you set up your data notifications here, so that's your alarm, if you set up data and you download the logger using the app, you'll get a notification with a report in it. And so you can test it that way without triggering an alarm.
Okay, I've got one that says, how do you enter trip info and trip info value?
So Again, you're going to create the trip fields here, and these are just fields. So just like your logger profile and your gateway profile, you're creating a field with all the values in it. And then when you go to program your logger, it's going to automatically prompt you to fill out those fields. So when you're creating a trip field, you can make it required so that the user is forced to fill out that field before you can start the logger. If you don't make it required, then they don't have to fill out that particular field and they can start the logger without it. But you will see that come up automatically when you're programming the logger itself. If you're programming with the gateway through InTempConnect versus the mobile app, you will see that here, where here's all my trip information. If it's got an asterisk, it means it's a required field. I can't save this until that required field is filled out. So these do come up automatically after you create them.
Okay. Another question. The InTemp loggers don't have the functionality to overwrite the memory question mark. So I think they're just asking if what happens when the memory gets full.
If the memory gets full, the logger will automatically stop. You will have to download it and restart it with the app, but that's where you got to be careful. If you're doing download and continue with a gateway, the logger will stop automatically once the memory is full and will not continue recording. It does not delete data, so it doesn't wrap. So the data doesn't wrap, meaning it'll delete old data to replace it with new data. It just stops. So you won't be notified of that either. So you have to be really careful if you're doing download and continue.
Okay. One asks, how do you schedule an automated weekly report from the gateway for record keeping purposes?
Yep, so you do that through the gateway profile. So that's again dictating the behavior, where I can say I wanted to do a download and restart or continue or stop, depending on your application. And then you can just choose weekly or month, and that will automate it for you. So it would automatically give you a device report. Now, one thing to clarify here is with the gateway in the app, you will only get a report that is for one device in one download. If you need reports that have multiple devices or multiple downloads for the same device, you will have to use our reporting features here, which will allow you to create custom reports, allow you to define how you want the data grouped by and summarized by. Again, this is where you can use trip fields to make business related decisions like, is one courier acting better than the other, one package acting better than the other. So that is the only way to create a report with multiple downloads or multiple loggers. With this, you can actually create custom reports and put it on a schedule where I want to say something like, I want all these loggers for storage in one report sent out to me every single week. I want it sent out on every Monday at 8 a.m. and it will automatically create that custom report and send it to whatever email address you put in here every week. So you can do both.
Okay. Another question, can you edit the logger configuration after it was initially set up?
You can, but you will have to download and reconfigure that logger manually. So you'll have to use the, well, you can do it remotely too from ITC by going to the configure logger option here or with the app, but you will need to download and reconfigure in order to apply the new profile. So there is some manual intervention there.
Okay. How do we turn off the alarm after it's triggered?
So if you're using your gateways and you have it set to download and restart, it will actually do it for you. And however, if you do a download and restart either through the gateway or with the app, and it's still in bad conditions, meaning it's the temperature is still too high or still too low, it will alarm immediately after. But if you clear that data, if you restart the logger, it will clear the alarm and you won't get notifications anymore.
Okay. What happens if there is a power failure? Does it keep monitoring?
Yes. So just because there's a power failure does not mean you will ever lose data. Obviously, the loggers are powered by their own internal batteries, so AAAs for the 400 loggers, and then lithium coin cell batteries for the 5, 6, 700 loggers. So that has nothing to do with power failures, right? And your loggers will record no matter what. For the 400 loggers, if your batteries die or if they get knocked out, they really shouldn't be able to get knocked out, but if you remove them for whatever reason, it will stop recording data and you will need to download and restart it immediately. One thing to note is we are going to be releasing a brand new feature in the summer that will alert you of low batteries for the CX400 loggers, just like you'd be alerted for high or low temperature alarms. So you will get a notification at some point soon in the summer that low batteries or your batteries are getting low so that you can swap them out, download the logger and swap them out before they actually die. But if the batteries do die on those, they will stop. But you can always retrieve what data it did record before the power failure on the logger. For the gateway, if it goes down, there's nothing to worry about because the gateway really doesn't hold data. The data stays on the loggers until it's ready to be downloaded, and then the gateway will automatically push it up. If a power outage does occur while the gateway is doing something, you don't have to worry. As soon as the power goes up or goes on again, or the internet comes up again, the gateway knows to complete that download and set it up immediately. So we guarantee you're not losing data just because a power outage or internet outage happened.
Okay. Another question. As a requirement for VFC, we have to record low and high temperatures. How do we clear the temperatures?
The only way to clear them right now is to perform a download and restart, which again, the gateway will do every week. You can set it to do it every day. You'll just have to put 7 days of daily reports together when you submit it to the CDC. This is something that is creating a lot of confusion with VFC customers. The VFC CDC regulations of both of them do not dictate that you have to clear the min and max on the logger after you record. They don't say that anywhere. If you look into those regulations really closely, they do not dictate that you have to do that. And honestly, I actually recommend not doing it because it's better to see the min and max over time. But that being said, we do know that this is something that people are requiring. Some countries actually do require you to clear the min and max. So I know Australia does. And then you might have internal requirements that require you to clear the min and max. So because of that, we will be releasing a new feature for the loggers themselves this summer, where if you hold down the button on the CX400 logger, it will clear the min and max on the screen. But please note, as of now, the regulations don't actually dictate that you need to do that.
Okay. Next one, they're just trying to work out how the texts are sent. They want to know what triggers the text to be sent out. And I assume it's referring to the alert notification.
Right. So it could be one of 3 things at this moment. So if a temperature excursion occurs, which is your sensor alarms, if your missing gateway alarm occurs, so if your gateway goes down for X amount of time for a power failure or internet outage, or if a download occurs in general, so your regularly scheduled downloads that happen every day, week, or month, or if you're downloading with the app off schedule or downloading with ITC off schedule, you can set it up so you get text alerts, but you do have to set up the text alerts specifically for each one of those. So for each one of them, you have to say text alert. So in any of those 3 situations, you will get the text alert.
Okay. Next one. Is there a way to remove the cloud alarms without turning off the logger alarms?
You just have to create a new logger profile and then apply the logger profile to that logger. So again, logger profile. Just note, you don't have to create a cloud alarm here. That's not required. You can click save without creating cloud alarms. So if you do need to remove cloud alarms, just create a new profile and then apply it to that logger.
And on that note, Colin, the next one said, are you able to set secondary alarms?
Unfortunately, not at this time. We are looking into that option, and unfortunately, it is an extremely massive project for us. There's a lot of components and a lot of details to that kind of functionality. It is definitely something that is in our backlog. We do fully intend to do, hopefully as soon as possible, but we don't have that feature scheduled at this time.
Okay. One asked, how do we restart the data logger?
Either through the mobile app or through InTempConnect, or Gateway will do it automatically. So in either one of those situations, you just have to make sure you're choosing download and restart, and it will restart the logger for you. When you restart the logger, it automatically applies the existing profile, the logger profile, to it, so you don't have to dictate the behavior over and over and over. So again, either through the app, through one of the feature here, the download feature here, or the gateway behavior. As long as you have the gateway behavior set to download and restart, that's how you can restart the loggers.
Okay. Another question, can you set different units to Celsius and Fahrenheit, or do they all have to be the same? This is for a CX402. It sounds like they want some to have Fahrenheit and some to reflect Celsius.
Unfortunately, I don't believe you can do that. The Celsius and Fahrenheit is at a system and an app level, so I'm pretty sure you can't mix and match that way. If you have different organizations or if you have customers that all require something different, what I recommend is you create different InTempConnect accounts. And as administrator, I can quickly go to any InTempConnect account, switch back and forth, but then I can have one account set in Celsius, one account set in Fahrenheit, and have different settings for different customers. But there's no way to have some loggers in Celsius and some in Fahrenheit with just one account.
Okay. Next question says, what device is used for calibration to achieve NIST standards? Is this a Fluke thermometer or a similar device to that?
I'm actually not sure what specifically we use, but I do know for a fact that the equipment that we use for NIST is in fact calibrated regularly. I think it's on a yearly basis as required by regulations by a ISO 17025 lab. So that's what allows us to trace back our loggers to NIST standards by using that equipment. So we do have that on file. You can request an audit with us and we can provide you with that documentation. We can't just give it to you though. You have to request a formal audit. But the equipment we use is NIST calibrated by a 17025 lab, which allows us to have that traceability. That being said, we are actually working on becoming a 17025 lab ourselves so that everything that we use will be traceable automatically.
Okay. Another one says, real time for our needs can be up to a couple of hours old. What is the minimum time delay for the communication to go from the logger to the gateway and then to the gateway to the cloud?
It honestly can happen within seconds. So it's very fast. The only thing that could cause some delays is if you have maybe like 20, 30 loggers all trying to be downloaded at once. So that's for shipping and logistics customers. Or if a logger is completely full on memory, that will take a bit longer, but it happens very fast to get the data up to InTempConnect. Again, if you're using the on-demand downloading feature, it could take up to 10 minutes. But if you're using the mobile app, or if the gateway is doing a regularly scheduled download, that happens extremely quickly.
Okay. Another one says, are the InTempConnect mobile app and InTemp Verify already available for Bluetooth-enabled Windows laptops?
That's a very good question. I'm actually not sure. I know obviously they'll work on mobile devices and tablets. I'm not sure if they'll work with laptops. That's something I'll have to look into.
Okay.
So
Just, yeah.
we can definitely, if there's a lot more questions, we can always answer them individually and send them out in response back to, or we can resend them in the communication with the presentation and the recording. But we can definitely answer a few more questions, Mason, and then I think after that, I'll just answer them on an individual basis, and we'll include them in our communication to everybody.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that the rest might be a more lengthy response. So I really think we got through the questions that we could really get a prompt response on at this point.
Okay, great. So thank you everybody for, I mean, these are great questions. I'm glad we're able to do this. It just goes to show that this is really needed. Again, if you need help in the future, reference the presentation we're going to be sending out for the different resources, tech support, customer service, sales. Again, it shows you all the different places you can go to for resources, on-demand resources like your guides, your videos, and your step-by-step instructions. So we do really have everything you need to become self-sufficient, and beyond that, have everything you need if you are needing some troubleshooting guidance. But thank you all again so much for coming out today. We will definitely get to those other questions, and I will follow up with the team here to make sure that they get answered and sent out to everybody. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.